A founder says, I just have really high standards. And I always want to know one thing. Can anything happen without you? Because if every email needs your eye, every proposal needs your edits, every client issue needs your intervention, every team decision needs your approval, and every deliverable needs your fingerprints on it, we may not be looking at high standards. We actually may be looking at control. And I know that one is super annoying because sometimes you are right. Sometimes your version is better. And sometimes you do catch the thing everyone else missed. And if the business requires you to catch everything forever, that is not a standard. That's a ceiling. Welcome to the Aligned Edit. I'm Veronica Dietz, founder of Taiki Digital Agency, diagnostic strategist, and growth advisor. This is the show where we look at the patterns that keep smart founders stuck and name them clearly enough that you cannot unsee them. This is the Aligned Edit. Let's edit the noise and look at what's actually happening. So the founder is not careless. That is what makes this pattern harder to catch. So she's doing the opposite. She's everywhere. She reads everything. She catches everything. She answers everything. She rewrites everything. She steps in whenever something is just not quite right, which is, you guessed it, very often. So this means she is constantly stepping in. And from the outside, it looks like dictation. From the inside, it feels like the business cannot function without her. And it's because it cannot. The thing is, that's the diagnosis. The founder built a system where nothing can move without her approval, her memory, her taste, her correction, and or her emotional regulation. She calls it standards. She just has really high standards, and the business is calling it flat out a bottleneck because both things are true at the same time. You can have these high standards and your business is struggling, and this is the load-bearing issue. This is your bottleneck. What founders say when they defend it, I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I'm laughing just because it's funny to reflect on these experiences, and it's not funny if you're going through it. It's something very serious, and I hope we can get to it right now because I really want to give language to what we're talking about. I think if we have language for it, you'll recognize it. And it is faster if I do it myself, right? I have tried delegating, but nobody does it right. I mean, my team is great, but I still need to review everything. I don't want things going out that don't sound like me. I am the one with the relationship. I'm the one who can catch the nuance. My clients expect a certain level from me. I just care about the quality. And here's the thing, guys. Some of that is true, and some of it can be true. She might actually have better taste. She might actually catch things other people miss. She might actually be the strongest person in the business at delivery, at sales, at client care, at strategy, and nuance. But that is also not the problem because the business is built around her being the strongest person in every room forever. That is not a growth model. It's the bottleneck with really good branding and a little pride badge. The diagnostic tell, the tell is not whether the founder cares about quality. It's most founders care about quality. That's not rare. The tell is whether the business can maintain quality without constant founder intervention. Can an email go out without her rewriting it? Can a client problem get handled without her stepping in? Can a proposal be created without her rebuilding the whole thing? Can the team make a judgment call without needing to ask her what she thinks? Can someone else protect the standard because they understand it, not because she personally reviewed it. That is the difference. A standard can be taught. A standard can be documented. A standard can be protected by other people. Control cannot. Control requires the founder to stay in the middle. And this is the line that usually lands hardest in a diagnostic conversation. Control is what happens when the standard only exists inside the founder's head. If the only way to protect the quality is for her to personally touch every piece, the standard is not a system. It is a dependency. And that's the thing founders get wrong about delegation. I've been there. I've done this. I've talked about this. A lot of founders say they have tried delegation and it did not work. And I believe them because I've lived this. But I want to look at what is actually happened, because most of the time when they delegated, it was about a task, not the logic. So they said, write this email. They did not say, here's what good looks like. Here is the principle behind the tone. Here is where you have judgment, and here's where you do not. Here's what would make me trust this without reviewing it. They gave instructions and then got frustrated when the person did not make founder-level judgment calls. But the judgment was never transferred. So then the founder called the team incapable. And guess what? The team was not incapable. The system was incomplete. Nobody does it right is sometimes accurate. It is also sometimes what happens when nobody was ever taught the logic behind what is right. And those are two very different problems with very different solutions. And what does it cost you? Because this pattern looks responsible in the beginning. Of course, you have to put your eyes on everything. Then it actually becomes the most expensive thing in your business. It's going to cost you speed. Everything waits for the founder. Every approval, every review, every sign-off, the business moves at the pace of her availability, which is really already stretched. It costs team confidence, and nobody feels trusted to make a decision. So they really just stop trying. They just ask. Every little question roots back to the founder because that is what the system has trained them to do. It costs founder capacity. She becomes the approval department of her own business. She is the bottleneck, and unfortunately, she is also the boss. It costs growth because every new client increases the demand on the same central nervous system. There is a ceiling on how much the business can hold before, guess what? It starts breaking. And eventually, it will cost desire because the founder starts resenting that the very business she has built. And it's not because the business is bad. It's because she built herself into every load-bearing wall. I have not built a business. I have built a dependency system with revenue. That is a sentence that breaks it open. And it stings because the business may be profitable. It may have clients, referrals, a team, a good reputation, but operationally, everything still roots through the founder. Every decision, every exception, every approval, every quick question. And once she sees that, you can't unsee it. So the real issue under the control, because the control usually shows up when the founder has not defined the standard clearly enough for anyone else to protect it. So she protects it with proximity. So she stays close, she reviews, she corrects, she catches, she absorbs. But proximity is not a standard. It is a workaround. The mature move is not to care less. It is to define what good actually means. What makes this acceptable? What makes this on brand? What makes this aligned with the client promise? Where does the team have judgment? Where do we need approval? What is the principle behind the preference? Because make it feel more premium is not a standard. That is a panic text wearing a blazer. Cute little visual there. Sound more like Me is not a standard, especially if nobody can explain what like me means without spiritually summoning you into the room. Make it better is not a standard. Those are vibes with pressure attached to it and high expectations that you're not communicating. A real standard gives someone else enough clarity to make a good decision without needing to become you. Founder taste is not a system, and your personal excellence got the business here, and it will not be enough to get the business out of founder dependence. Thinking about this, it also sounds like how people use AI. Like, you ask AI to write you something, and I had a client last year, and she's just like, I keep telling it to make it better, to sound more like me. And I said, well, what do you sound like? What would make it better? And she couldn't answer. I was like, well, AI is not going to be able to answer that for you either. But that's what is happening, right? So I digress. Because the truth of what we're trying to talk about here and what I'm trying to uncover for you is the identity piece. I want to name the thing underneath the control, because that's the reason this pattern is so hard to shift. Control often feels safer than leadership, because leadership requires letting the business become less dependent on your personal touch. And for a founder who built the business through talent and taste and intuition, responsiveness, personal excellence, that can feel like a loss of identity. Because quietly, part of your thinking is, if I'm not the one touching everything, will it still be good? If I'm not the one clients rely on, will they still value it? If someone else can do it, what makes me special? That's the quiet part that we're not really listening to. Instead, we're listening to the fact that control feels safer. And we're not listening to this quiet part that's trying to make us better leaders. A lot of founders do not only fear things going wrong, really. There's so much more to be afraid of. They fear that the business is working without them and what that might mean about their importance. And that is a real fear. That is also a threshold, because the business cannot grow past the founder's need to be essential. So the question is not whether your standards are high. The question is whether anyone else can hold them. If the answer is no, then that is not a team problem. That is a structure problem. And it does have a solution. So that's good. The week in one thread. So this week has been really inspired by conversations I've had over the last 2 weeks with clients in one-on-one direction sessions and my integration sessions with clients doing the longer work, the longer term work. The pattern has been running over and over again. Episode 82 on Monday, we talked about perfectionism, and it looks like you have high standards. On Tuesday in episode 83, we talked about over-explaining look like communication problems. On Wednesday, episode 84, it was about coaching the wrong question. It looks and feels like progress. Yesterday, episode 85 on Thursday, we mentioned the brand looked mature, but the founder was still making old self decisions. And today, Friday, episode 86 of season 4, control looks like standards, but the business cannot breathe without the founder. So these are all the same issues, just wearing different costumes, different masks, different avatars. And every single one of these is a case of treating the visible thing instead of the structural thing underneath it. So every single one of them has the same diagnostic move. Stop, name what is actually happening, find the real decision, and make that decision. If you are the final checkpoint for everything in your business, that is not a capacity issue. It is a structural signal. And I don't believe my free why this feels off is the solution for you. If you really want to make a change and make an investment that has a very large ROI, because $500 for 1 hour with me is going to change your business in ways that we can't even quote at this moment. I don't even have to look at what's happening for you right now to give you this concept that your $500 investment is going to be a huge impact on your growth and your profits. Because in a direction session, we're going to find where the business is relying on you instead of a standard, a decision rule, or a system. And then we're going to identify the cleanest move to get you out of the middle without lowering the quality. Because the goal is not to care less. The goal is to build something that can hold the standard without you having to personally hold every piece. That is where the relief is. It's not about lowering the bar, but in finally building a business that does not need your fingerprints on everything to stay excellent. That is what a direction session is for. You can find it at veronicadietz.com. I will link it in the show notes. If nothing can happen without you, that is not a standard. That is a ceiling. And the move is not to lower the standard. It is to build a business that can hold it without you standing in the middle of everything. Because the business cannot scale past the founder's need to be the final set of eyes. So the question this week, and it is the same question under every episode this week, is not whether you are working hard enough. It is whether the thing you are protecting is actually a standard, or whether it's just control, wearing a really cute outfit with good hair. So I hope you enjoyed this week. I hope you enjoyed today, and I hope you have a wonderful tomorrow. Until then, talk soon.